there is a global rise in demand for energy and electricity, and Africa's uranium is a lot more accessible than other uranium mines in the rest of the world. So in that respect, it is gathering a lot of interest from the corporate world and from investors generally.
So we've got a lot of, there's a lot of prospect then for African uranium production, but of course uranium is an emotive commodity as well and can be open to abuse. Are we controlling it well enough in Africa, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think it is really mainly up to the industry at the moment. The industry is the only part of the uranium mining sector that has the capacity to improve the sustainability of mining. In my opinion, there needs to be global consultative processes by the government and by civil society to set the perimeter within which mining companies in the uranium sector should operate.
Because of its strategic and, as I said, emotive nature of the commodity, is it government that needs to get involved? Is it a corporate governance issue, or do both have to come together in order to control this production and where the uranium goes, for example?
I don't see any reason for any part of this process to be excluded. I think that industry should definitely participate in a consultative process, but yes, in terms of governance, I say that governments should initiate the processes to set a perimeter within which uranium mining should take place in African countries.
Yes, exactly, and where the uranium goes, of course. I mean, I'm sure there, in the darker days of African development and mining development, I would have thought that it might have been open to abuse. Presumably that has stopped now.
I wouldn't say so. There is still some artisanal uranium mining happening, and I don't think that African governments really have the capacity to control this, and this is something that international organizations should definitely look into.
From a South African point of view, uranium has in the past, I think anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost been a byproduct of things like the gold mining industry, but has that changed now? Are people targeting single mines, and can it be mined singly?
It can't in South Africa. South African uranium is a byproduct of gold and copper mining. It's in the same rock, and it will stay this way. But it doesn't mean we don't have very large reserves.
In a global context, what are our reserves like?
It depends at which price you look at the uranium reserves, but I would say between 4 and 5% of global reserves. That's quite a lot of uranium.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it's an important byproduct. I mean, with the difficulties in the platinum and particularly in the gold mining industry in South Africa, obviously becoming very important. What's been the price trends recently? The commodities under pressure at the moment. But what about the longer-term trend of uranium prices?
It's very difficult to tell with the global debates on the nuclear industry generally. At the beginning of the year, when I wrote this paper on uranium mining in Africa, the price was $52 per pound, sorry. And now it's gone down to $50 per pound.
It's quite a small move, though. I mean,
it's a very small move. I wouldn't say that. I would say that the uranium price is stable at the moment, and in particular in Africa, it really won't affect the interest of mining uranium in Namibia, Malawi, Niger, or South Africa, because the commodity is accessible, the rock is accessible a lot more than, say, in Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan or Canada or Australia.
Which other countries in Africa are important in terms of uranium production? I mean, are there some where there are mines that are just going to be uranium mines, or as in the South African case, is it all going to be a byproduct of other commodities?
At the moment, except for South Africa, the 3 other uranium producing countries, Malawi, Niger and Namibia, all have open pit mines. Those are open mines where you mine directly from the rock. It's difficult to say because in the countries where there could be uranium mining, such as Tanzania or Zambia or Mali or the Central African Republic, mining hasn't started yet. So the Central African Republic is the object of a lot of attention from Areva, and I think that's going to be an open pit mine. But there are large reserves in countries that are being explored but that are not being exploited yet.
What about projects going forward? I mean, previous experiences of uranium mining in Africa obviously governs what's going to happen in the future. Have things changed? Is there a sort of change of attitude towards uranium mining, the way it's done, the way it's governed?
That's very difficult to answer. I think that companies are generally becoming more sustainable. The traditional companies operating in Africa, like Paladin or Uranium One or AngloGold Ashanti or Areva or Rio Tinto, there are new actors, Chinese, Indian, Russian interests in Africa, and it is...
Is that dangerous, the fact that other people are coming in? I mean, could they be using the uranium or seeking to control uranium production in Africa for not nefarious means, but for means that might not exactly be kosher, if you see what I mean?
Absolutely not. I really think that they're trying to answer their own demands in increased energy and electricity production. It is in our interest, in South Africa's interest, in Africa's interest, to include them in these policy dialogues and these consultative processes that I mentioned, to make sure that they adhere to the global charts of ethics and sustainability that exist in the corporate world for uranium mining.
So with the global energy crunch that there might be in the future, we keep hearing about it, but the oil price has come down from 128 to 92. Would you say that very long term, uranium is a commodity that has a great future in terms of its price, its demand and its uses?
I would say that uranium in Africa has a great future because there's so much of it that isn't being exploited and because the price of exploitation is relatively low. Yes.